What's up, everybody? This is Hall of Fame wide receiver Terrell Owens here, a.k.a. T.O. Get your popcorn ready. Do a favor. Leave my guy Conor a 5-star rating after the show. Listen to it. Give him some feedback. And also, if you want to listen to my podcast as well, check it out. Subscribe, share. You don't need to leave a 5-star rating. We're 5-star. I'm 5-star all the time. My podcast is called Get Your Popcorn Ready with T.O. and Hatch. Again, check out both of those podcasts. And hey, check it out, listen, and subscribe.
Thanks for tuning in to Eagles Brawl of the Brawl Network. However you're listening, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, Stitcher, or wherever you listen to the podcast. We greatly appreciate it. Conor Myles here with my co-host Jonny Page, and we got a very, very, very special guest, very dear to my heart, back from the 2014 Eagles, 2015 Eagles. I met this man, wrote for his website, continue to talk to him daily about the Eagles and love his opinions, love his film analysis. Philly Sports Network's Liam Jenkins. Liam, thanks for coming on the show, my man.
No, pleasure's all mine. We just keep intertwining, man. It's cool. It's good to be on. Thanks for having me.
Of course. I mean, Jonny and I came up with what we're going to do for today's episode, talk about the most underrated, most overrated breakout candidate, player that will surprise and player that disappointed. And we thought, for some reason, him and I always agree too much. And we need to add some diversity to the show. And even if I don't agree with, because you and I over the years haven't agreed on everything, but you and I can simply talk about it and you can express your opinion why. I'm like, damn, I have to consider that because he thoroughly explained it, why he feels that way. And then the points were relevant. That's why we had to have you on the show, because even if your answers are different than ours, which I'm hoping they are, I'm hoping there's some excitement, because I brought some excitement to mine. I know Jonny will try to bring some to his. I know that you're going to be one that will explain well, make me eat crow.
I'll try. I mean, there's pressure now. I'm going to get a little bit flustered, but no, I'm genuinely excited. And I think these sort of debates I've always said to you, from the days when we started working together, as you have a couple of times. I mean, that's what we know separates the men from the boys now. Like, anyone can say a hot take or an opinion, but if you can't stand behind it and back it up, it doesn't matter if it's right or wrong. Like, if you can make someone just double take and go, actually, I see where he's coming from at the very least, then that's sort of the, to not plug another podcast, the art of the take, if you will. And we'll see how artistic we can be in a period where I think all of our sanities are being tested. So if, as a heads up, any opinion that is terrible, blame COVID, because we are all just losing our minds at this point, all right?
Absolutely. So that's why I thought, the content's dry right now. We might as well make a controversial list and let the viewers decide who had the best list. Maybe do a little giveaway. Jonny will think about it. I just want to see who thinks everybody had the best list, because I think it's an interesting couple topics that we got going on. But, Jonny, let's kick it away with most underrated. You started off, my friend. Who do you have as the Eagles' most underrated player?
Before I do that, despite your lovely introduction, I would just like to point out this is an Eagles podcast with two people from England. So I think, Liam, you should say we are coming. Just might be the only time we ever outnumber, the Americans on here. But yeah, we were chatting off air about how we sort of covered the sport. But there we go. So two English people. I'm sure there are some people that aren't impressed, but if you get used to the accent, then it's fine. Right, underrated player. I'm really hoping that we've got different answers, because Conor bigged this up for a debate. And normally when me and Conor do this, we don't look at each. I have no idea what you guys are going to say. We'll end up somehow
I'm
picking
glad
the same
you brought
player.
that up. Yeah, just so the viewers are aware, Jonny did not tell me any part of his list. I did not tell him any part of mine, and neither did Liam. We're all coming in completely blind to each other's list. So once Jonny says his answer, I will know his, just like you guys will too.
All right, so underrated player, actually. I'm basing this a little bit based on my when we did our last podcast about sort of most important players. And I think people were really harsh on me for having him high. So I'm going to go with Dallas Goedert as being the Eagles' currently most underrated player, which is a weird one because I think you get some people in the fan base that believe he's better than Ertz, which I don't think. But I also think you get people that basically just think, oh, if Goddard goes down and doesn't play next year, so what? We'll just play 3 wide receivers. We'll just play Ertz. And I think that's like a huge issue, really. I think Dallas Goedert is crucial to this season going well, which we assume will happen, will go well, because basically the Eagles are going to be a 1-2 personnel offense. Dallas Goedert is excellent. I mean, he's a top 7, top 8 tight end in the league. The biggest issue with Dallas Goedert is just Zach Ertz is incredibly good. And Zach Ertz has the trust of his coaching staff and the quarterback. So he's never going to hit the huge numbers. But if Ertz was to leave for some reason and Goddard was to step in, his numbers would be huge. I don't think he'd probably repeat Ertz in terms of receptions, but he could probably better him in most other categories. And yeah, when we done our last list, I got quite a lot of surprise. I got it in my top 10 most important players. I think people massively underrate how good he is. So it's a weird underrated one because I think people do know he's good. He's not like entirely underrated, but I think people think he's a good second tight end. And I think he's easily good enough to be your first tight end. It doesn't mean I'm saying getting rid of Ertz, but I actually think a lot of the fan base underrate Dallas Goedert. I think he's a very, very good tight end. He'd be pushing a top 5, top 6 tight end in the league if it wasn't for Ertz being there. So yeah, I'm going to go with Dallas Goedert as currently my most underrated Eagle.
That's a good answer. Dallas Goedert can start for 25 of the 32 teams in the NFL for sure. No doubt in my mind. So Liam, let's hear your answer, man. Let's go.
You know what? Obviously, I'm in the same boat as you guys. I didn't know what either of you were going to say. So I could have played it very coy and safe, being like, Carson Wentz is the most underrated, and do like every other analyst or pull the cowherd and say all the quarterback stats and how amazing. We all know that to the rest of the world, Carson Wentz is underrated, okay? And he probably is the most underrated player in some capacity. But to the diehard Eagles fans, which is who we're appealing to, I don't think we need to make that argument. I think the argument needs to be made to the front office for Cravon LeBlanc in every sense of the word, because the guy can't seem to get one over. And it's like, he had an amazing 2018 campaign, comes in for the playoff, interception against the Saints. Like, I think the time he joined in 2018 was the perfect time. It was that rise of like the masks and everyone having this like tenacity that they'd lost all season and being that hustler. And he was the only cornerback that could A, make a tackle, and B, cover simultaneously. Like, none of the corner could do that at the same time, it seemed. So you go into 2019 looking like, okay, we've got ourselves a slot corner. He's going to be the starter. Liz Frank injury, training camp ruined, in the mud, doesn't know what's going on. The Eagles give him a 1-year extension. They're like, look, okay, well, we'll do you a solid here because you were good in 2018. Comes in 2019, returns. Arguably the best cornerback performance I saw in 2019 was Cravon LeBlanc against the Giants. Honestly, like you can't overestimate how good that was. And the man matchup on Saquon Barkley, that huge tackle for a loss, the energy that brought to the team at that time. The only subpar game I've seen from Cravon, as someone that has watched every game like twice for numerous film rooms, was the playoff against the Seahawks, and that stung. Like, that wasn't great. It wasn't his finest hour. I'll admit that. But the reason he's underrated is then you go and get Nickel Roby-Coleman. So he's once again a backup corner, and I think he's good enough to start. Now, Nickel Roby-Coleman arguably is one of the better, if not the best nickel corner in the league, which is very terrible when you're writing articles because you've got Nickel and Nickel right next to each other every time. But I just feel like it's a bit of a shot at him. And I feel like they could have just gone, look, we've got Avonte Maddox. We can let Sidney Jones and Rasul Douglas go outside. At the time, I would have said Trevor Williams, but now that's gone. That pipe dream's disappeared. It's just I don't know. I didn't think the Roby-Coleman signing was needed. It's great. It's nice it's there. But I don't know. I feel like the strap should have been given that starting role.
That's a very flaming hot take answer, but I mean I agree with you in a sense because I think LeBlanc is a very good slot cornerback too. I think he's great tackling. I thought every time he's played for the Eagles, he's played well. You don't see it compared to how many chances they give in Sidney Jones and Avonte Maddox on the outside. Like, you don't see LeBlanc screwing up as much as those two do. But to me, you have to sign Nickel Roby-Coleman if he's on the market for 1 year, $1.3 million. He brings that Patrick Robinson effect. So I think that's what the Eagles were like. Instead of taking the what if and LeBlanc, who has been injured throughout his career, hasn't really solidified himself as a player, despite his good play with the Eagles. they had to go ahead and get Roby Coleman. But I do like that answer because I do think he's an underrated player on the Eagles roster for sure.
Yeah, just really quick, Conor, before you give yours. Yeah, that's someone I hadn't thought of. I think he'll make the team. I think, like you said, if he's healthy, he's good enough to play. To be honest, I go one step further. I'd say that we had 2 good nickel corners. I think Avonte Maddox is a good nickel corner as well. I think Roby Coleman, just a case that Schwartz probably hit the table very hard for him, and he's really, really good. But if Maddox is going to play outside, I think LeBlanc could easily make the roster. And we know a lot of teams spread you out now. You're going to need two corners on the field at times. If Roby Coleman goes down, I think there's every chance LeBlanc still plays. I'd rather keep him on the roster than someone like Rasul Douglas, personally, if you're going to take 5 corners. So, yeah, I don't think it's the end of the line for him. He's just got to prove he can stay healthy. So, yeah, that's a good answer.
Oh, yeah, no, he's on very cheap money. They're not getting rid of him. That's not happening. Too many. I mean, not only that, ever since Patrick Robinson, they've had inconsistency at the nickel position because everybody gets hurt or hasn't played well up to standard. So, I mean, to throw away an insurance policy at the nickel, I don't see them doing that at all. But let's go into my answer, and I think most people will guess it. It is Rodney McLeod. No safety on the Eagles roster is capable of playing center field free safety right now, so that makes him irreplaceable. When McLeod went down in 2018, the secondary got incredibly leaky and ultimately failed to replace his presence. Same could happen in 2020 if he were to get hurt. McLeod has never given up more than 1 touchdown in coverage during his 4 years in Philadelphia and has yet to post a coverage grade below 70 with the Eagles per Pro Football Focus. Second year removed from ACL, which bodes extremely well for players recovering from the same injury. That is exactly why I think Rodney McLeod is the Eagles' most underrated player. Look, I mean, they brought him back for a reason. I think they thought Malcolm Jenkins at a higher rated salary was not the way to go because I would argue his play is spiraling downward. I love Malcolm Jenkins. I think he's a great leader. I think if he's on this team right now, he's probably the 3rd best defensive player on the team still. But I think you could replace a box safety a lot easier than you could replace a center field free safety. And Johnny and I have spoken on it multiple times on episodes before that. It's just a harder position than what people can evaluate for. None of these guys are going to look amazing, especially McLeod with the missed tackles last year. I think his form was a little off because he was 1 year removed from the ACL. Like I just pointed out, he's the 2nd year removed. I think he's going to be way more fluid, way more elusive, and he's got nothing but rest right now. So it's not like the guy is coming into a new defense. He knows the system. He knows the ins and outs. Probably going to be one of your leaders, honestly. I know everybody wants to point to Jalen Mills and Fletcher Cox and Brandon Graham and all those guys, but I think Rodney McLeod will definitely step up in a leadership role this year, replacing Malcolm Jenkins. Like I just said, 1 touchdown. He's only been accounted for 1 touchdown in coverage in his 4 years in Philadelphia each season. No more than that. Very underrated player, I believe, on the Eagles.
Yeah, I mean, I would say it was a dark horse for me. Like, I think, honestly, that 2018 season before he went down weeks 1 to 4 was elite. Like, if you go back, like that Colts game, 2018, like really early on, was one of the best games that I'd seen him play. And I think the difference was for me in 2019 was that he was oddly playing in the box a little bit more. Like, I don't have any PFF numbers or snap counts where he was distributed, but it felt like he was being dropped inside a lot more. And what didn't help was that when the Eagles are playing those robber concepts where you've got one safety dropping down or like someone playing a buzz, it was always Malcolm Jenkins making the error. But because Rodney McLeod was the deepest safety, it was him that looked bad. He was on the other side of the field. Malcolm Jenkins bites on this tight end underneath. You've got Rasul Douglas shaded inside. Next thing, Terry McLaurin's flying deep. And McLeod gets stick for it because he's the deep guy that to a casual fan should be with him. It's not the case. Like, it's not his responsibility there.
See, you get my point then, yes, because I'm glad you're alluding to like the ins and outs of it to a full extent. But yes, you were seeing the same thing I was seeing on film. My thing is, look at the Eagles' safety depth, and I don't want to get too much more into this because we got to get into the other topics. But they had to ask McLeod to blitz and do more.
Yeah.
Because I think they thought lesser of Malcolm Jenkins last season due to his play. And look at the safeties behind him. You're not asking Rudy Ford. You're not asking Marcus Epps. You're not asking Andrew Sadeo. You're not asking Jonathan Cypher to play in the box. You're not asking them to play center field. Now they have all these guys, not just these 2 collective starters that they have that they're paying a ton of money to. Now they're paying McLeod on modest money. They're paying Jay Mills on very low money. Will Parks very low money. They drafted Kayvon Wallace as a rookie contract. They have a lot of pieces to use at safety this year, so I think you could put McLeod in center field. I think he'll play majority of snaps. Well, obviously he's going to be his majority of his snaps there, but I don't think you're going to see as that much, like you alluded to this year, of him playing in the box around the line of scrimmage now with all the depth they have at safety, because it's not just two guys anymore, really.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think that's fair. Should I move on?
Yes, we're going to go into most overrated, Johnny. Go ahead. Start off.
Overrated is always a bit of a horrible one because you feel like you're putting someone down. I'm going to go for one. I just picked these based on where I stand on players compared to Eagles Twitter. So it doesn't mean I don't like them. It's just from what I think. I think this player gets way too much buzz on Eagles Twitter, and we spoke about him quite a bit on the pod. So I'm not going to go into detail. I was going to put him as disappointing, but I put him as overrated. I would go TJ Edwards, linebacker. Which is a bit harsh because he's sort of a late round pick last year or UDFA. He sort of worked his way up through the team and does very well. And we all love those kind of stories, which is great. I hope he's very, very good this year. But I also think TJ Edwards is being overrated by what people think he's going to do. So I keep saying he's going to be like a starter. People saying he's going to start for the Eagles. He's going to start in base as a linebacker, and I would guess that's the only place he starts. I don't think they'll ask him to play nickel at all. I don't think they'll ask him to play dime. He didn't look very good in coverage last year, but he is very good against the run. He will give you help against the Saquon Barkleys and the Ezekiel Elliott's when teams try and run it down your throat. But most of the time when we're playing teams in 1-1 personnel and we're spread out with one or two linebackers on the field, it's not going to be TJ Edwards. So I like him, but I like him in a specific role. I sort of write as my notes, he's a bit of an old school base linebacker who wants to run and hit sideline to sideline. That's how I'd sort of describe him. There's nothing wrong with him as a player. I think he's very good in that role. And I think 10 years ago, I would probably have him on a different category here, maybe underrated, because I used to love linebackers like that. They used to be so easy to scout, sort of see ball, bang, loads of tackles, but the game's changing. And those kind of players are valuable, but I just find it when people talk about him being our best linebacker or people talk about him being our starter, it depends what you mean his starter is these days. So if you think 30% of your snaps most likely is a starter, then that's fine. That's why we talk about Roby Coleman. He is a starter, in my opinion. Because that's what a nickel corner is these days. That's the way the league's going. And we have seen a little bit of a pushback in recent years. I think Greg Cosell said there was a fullback on the field last year more than there was like the previous 4 or 5 years. So maybe we're seeing a little bit old school football coming back. And in that case, I think he'll be more valuable against those sort of teams. But I think he's underrated compared to Eagles Twitter maybe calling him the best linebacker and a starter. Whereas as much as I like him in a specific role, I don't think he's sort of a starter in nickel or dime. Hence why I have him as overrated. Nothing against him. I hope he has a very good year. But yeah, I would say probably based on Eagles Twitter at the moment, he is my most overrated player currently.
As the days go by and as the lack of attention or lack of free agents, I would say, or anything that they bring in at linebacker, I'm starting to get more sold on the Nate Gary, Jatavius Brown, 2 linebacker sets more and more each day. I'm still hoping they bring in another linebacker, but I know Liam looks like he's very upset that you're saying TJ Edwards.
Nah, I'm not upset. No, I'm kidding. For me, the only argument I would give is, are you overrating the player or his role? Because as a player in the role, you can argue that Edwards surely then isn't, because considering he's undrafted, came in the limited action that he saw, didn't really put a foot out on a beat, to be honest. I thought he was pretty good most of the year. But is it the role then? Because I agree. I think like the reason why you've got Will Parks, Jalen Mills, Kayvon Wallace, like you're going to see more of what I always liken to the Chargers defense in 2018 when they faced the Chiefs. That's the thing I always go back to. Like 6-7 DB sets becoming this front where you want to get lighter, you want to get wider, you want to get quicker on defense. Like look at Davion Taylor. Like that's now your prototypical linebacker, very raw, very quick. But is it then, it's no fault of Edwards that he's overrated. It's more the role in this defense just evaporating a bit.
No, because it is a fault of Edwards because he's not good enough in coverage to play the other roles. So it's complicated, isn't it? Like people, I didn't put Davion Taylor in here because I've said too much about him this offseason, and I like the athleticism and stuff. But you have to play a role in which you can do, and I don't think if you look at his athletic numbers, they're not very good, TJ Edwards. And I might be wrong. And to be fair, a lot of this is because he plays such a small sample size. So if they want to roll him out at nickel next year and he can do it, then brilliant. Like, by all means, prove me wrong. But based on how they used him last year and how I think they're going to use him this year, it is partly I'm overrating the role. You're right. It is partly a role thing, but he's also in that role because I don't think he's good enough to play a different role. So if he was better in coverage, it's not like there's many people in front of him on the depth chart. So if he was better in coverage, I don't think he'd come off the field. So yeah, it is partly the role, but I think your skill set lends you to the role that you end up in. So yeah, that's what I'd say there.
Very quickly, can we just throw it back, since there's no preseason, just to week 4 last year where we had Alex Singleton v TJ Edwards in this Duel of Fates level iconic linebacker game where there's like 50 tackles each and then none of them. It was amazing. Like, I'm going to watch that game tonight now just because I missed preseason, but like, it was the best thing I've seen in a week 4 preseason game in forever.
TJ Edwards will always get tackle stats. Like, he's that player around the ball. I'm telling you, 10 years ago, like, people would love this guy. 10 years ago,
absolutely.
He'd be starting, he'd be ranking up 100 plus tackles
a
year.
Do you guys happen to remember Joe Mays? Joe Mays, the linebacker the Eagles had back in the day.
Yes, that was a long time ago.
Yeah, a long time ago, but everybody loved him because he was like the small linebacker, but he had so much heart he was playing with, and he was a good tackler. That's TJ Edwards, by the way. Joe Mays and TJ Edwards are the same players. So if you're listening to this pod, you remember them, and you remember Joe Mays, go compare the two, and I swear to God, they look the same. TJ Edwards, to me, though, is a great special teamer, and you can't downplay that. Special teams is an important, I would say, it's important nowadays. Just those punt returns can decide games. So, Miracle Malone's too. Anyways, Liam, your most overrated player on the Eagles is...
I'm really happy no one said mine yet. Well, I know it's only been Jonny, but I was kind of, because I've had a hot take for a while simmering, and I was like, when's the right time to come down on this man? It's Derek Barnett. He has not been a first-round pick. He has not shown me anything worthy of picking up a 5th-year option. I don't know why the team did it. I don't understand why you now go into a year where BG's getting older. You've got one contracted year and a 5th year of Derek Barnett. Sharif Miller's guaranteed us 10 sacks and has played 2 special team snaps in his rookie season, so that'll be fun. Josh Sweat has been the only defensive end that took a nice upside swing. Like, from what we saw in 2018 to 2019, big improvement. Love to see it. I'd love to see more from Joe Ostman. Without preseason, without camp, that's going to suck. There's a lot of pressure on Derek Barnett, and the only improvement I saw was he can now spin a little bit, occasionally. That's it. Like, sack numbers, you can argue. Like, my thing with Barnett has always been he'll burn out into drives. Like, he'll come in wild, like loads of speed off the edge. He'll bend around and look like he's near out of the Matrix. Get a big tackle for a loss. Get a big sack. Have his stat pad for a game of 1 sack, and then drive goes on another 8, 9, 10 plays and he's invisible and all the runs are going that way, and you're like, all right, well, it was great that you got a sack on 1st and 10 for 2nd and 12, but now they're 1st and 10 in the red zone, and never mind, the ball's rolled into you, picked it up, now that's your play as well, apparently. Like, there is nothing to me that says Derek Barnett was the right choice at that time. Now, I know he's the only thing that people go back to is, yeah, but he's still young. And I don't care. If you've been in the league the same amount of time as people that are older than you and they're doing significantly better, it's not enough. Like, you have to be better. And it's cool that you've got upside, but show me that the potential's there. Just being young isn't potential, and people get that confused. Derek Barnett, I'd love to see him prove me wrong. I would love to see him come out and have a great year, but nothing I've seen so far has shown me any hope of that happening yet.
That's a good one. I think most people would agree with that. If you asked majority of the fans, I think Derek Barnett would win the vote, to be honest with you, because I don't think he's ever going to live up to the top 15 pick expectations. But I won't talk much more about him because of other reasons that I will not be named. Why? So I agree with you, though. I everything you said is correct. It's never going to happen. I don't think he's ever going to be this complete defensive end. He can't bull rush. I don't think that's ever going to happen. Did it in college. Hasn't improved whatsoever in the pros. Don't think you're going to see that improve at all over time. It wasn't like he's in the Brandon Graham situation of Brandon Graham taking forever to break out because the Eagles have given Derek Barnett every opportunity to break out. Yeah. They won't take him off the field. He played 725 snaps last year, I believe. I think it was 752. Sorry. So Yeah, they're giving him every chance. It's not a Bernard Graham situation. Derek Barnett is the player that he is. He's a 2-down defensive end at best. That's what it is. So I'll go into my most overrated player. It's a steaming hot take. I think a lot of people are going to hate it because once you do something good in the Super Bowl, you're good with the Philadelphia Eagles for life. You're good with the fans for life. Because that's what I think people will say about Barnett. Well, Barnett does this.
Yeah.
That's what you see on. He did this in the Super Bowl. He did this in the NFC Championship game. Well, my most overrated Eagles player is Alshon Jeffrey. I went ahead and picked Alshon. If you said this about Alshon's career with the Eagles with the contract extension, that he would never amass 1,000 yards, never amass double-digit touchdowns, but they win the Super Bowl, I think people would tune out everything else you said and said, but the Super Bowl? He helped us win a Super Bowl? All right, that counts. That was worth it. So, yes, in reality, the one-year contract in 2017 was worth it, but ever since the contract extension, it has just not been there. And I'm going to tell you why, because I compared him to the last number one wide receiver the Eagles had. So Alshon's 3 seasons Philadelphia as the number one wide receiver target for the Eagles, 165 receptions, 2,122 yards, 12.8 yards per reception, 19 receiving touchdowns. Let's take a look at Jordan Matthews' first 3 seasons in Philadelphia as the number one wide receiver target. 225 receptions, 2,677 yards, 11.9 yards per reception, 19 receiving touchdowns. If I told you in 2017, hey, we're going to sign Alshon Jeffrey and he's going to produce on the same level as Jordan Matthews, what would you say?
I mean, I'm a big Jordan Matthews fan, so I'm not going to talk on it.
But, I mean, you would be disappointed because you expected Alshon Jeffrey to come in here and be a lot better than Jordan Matthews because that was the point. Am I correct?
Yeah.
Jonny?
Yeah, I can't figure out Alshon. Like, I'll be honest. Like, I think I told you this before. I was recording a podcast that season we signed Torrey Smith and Alshon Jeffrey, the Super Bowl season. And I went back and watched every single free agent wide receiver, like, in depth. It's probably the most detailed podcast I've ever done. And I loved Alshon, man. I loved him in Chicago. Like, young Alshon, go back to, like, I mean, I've got his numbers up in front of me now. In, like, 2013, 2014, like, he's got 140 plus targets.
When him and Brandon Marshall were fun to watch.
Young Alshon was incredible. But not even 2015, 2016 for Chicago. I loved him. I loved the signing. And in 2017, I thought he played really well. But his numbers were just, his catch percentage is awful. Like 2017, he's 120 targets and 57 catches for 789 yards. But there's still a part of me that's like, I don't think we ever. I've said this to you before. I said this on the Mike K episode. I don't think Alshon Jeffrey was ever a good scheme fit for what we want as an ex receiver. Like I've said that.
No.
And by the way, I wanted us to sign him, and I like the signing, but he does not strike me as a West Coast style of receiver. So I feel a bit sorry for Alshon. I do feel like we've never really given him sort of the best chance to go and succeed. I think he was better in 2018. I liked him in 2018. And to be honest, I find it, I don't know, it's a bit like the TJ Edwards thing, to be honest. It's hard to say what Liam said about role. Is Alshon overrated because his role for the Eagles just isn't what we wanted when we signed him? But there's also would the Eagles ever have a massive receiver going and hitting sort of 80 catches for 1,300 yards? I'm not sure the Eagles are built that way.
That was my sorry to jump in. Like that was my thing. So I remember when I spoke to Jordan Matthews before, his main takeaway, this was like just before his second stint with the team, was that the Eagles are built at the time like the Golden State Warriors in a way where if Curry can't go, you've got KD. If KD can't go, you've got Clay. If Clay can't go, you've got Iggy. In a way where no matter what other team matchup presents, that you've got someone there that can deliver and get open. And I don't think the possession receiver in this offense is designed to be the guy that goes out and gets 1,000 yards.
Designed to be Zach Ertz, right?
Yeah, and I remember that offseason where I had a very good bit of intel that the team wanted Kenny Stills. Then I put it out a day later. They signed Alshon, and my Twitter mentions become a train wreck for the next month. But looking at it, like I could see Kenny Stills being more of a success than Alshon was, at least from a receiving percentage, because of the type of player that Stills was in comparison. But I agree. Like Alshon is just he's an enigma. I think in every sense of the word. I don't know though. Like if we're gonna say, all right, well, if Alshon moves on next off season and J-Jaw takes over that role, is the production going to differ massively, or does that then become his whole point of being there is to open up the field for someone like a Rager, like a Zach Ertz, like whoever's playing the slot at that point? Or is it, well, no, this has to be the number one guy? Because when you've got Dallas Goedert, when you've got Zach Ertz, when you've got Miles Sanders now getting over 500 receiving yards as a rookie, like, surely there's a point of, if you take Olshon out of it, it's going to hurt the offense from an optionality standpoint.
So to Jonny and your point, I agree with you. The fact that I do think he's overrated though because of the injuries. I don't think he's been the same player because ever since he got to Philadelphia, he's been hurt numerous times. He's a shell of what he used to be in Chicago. Absolutely, I don't think if you remove him from this team and put him on another team, that decline isn't going to just improve. I don't, because you see people on Twitter thinking that when he comes back from injury, it's going to be an Alshon redemption year on Eagles Twitter, and that's why I even fueled me more to put him on this list because that's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. But I do agree with you, Jonny. I think it wasn't the best fit. I think at the time they thought we have a young franchise quarterback who struggled with mediocre wide receiver play during his rookie year. We need to get him the best talent available that we can. And that's what Joe Douglas' influence was to get the most proven, talented guys in the building. That's where you should build your team from. So they went out and signed Alshon. They went out and signed Torrey. But I think what the Eagles need from a wide receiver standpoint is playmakers, is separators, is speed guys. Because your Zach Ertz or your Dallas Goederts are your main possession wide receivers, really. To call them tight ends at this point is wrong. The 12 personnel, tight ends are basically your wide receivers at this point. They're the best wide receivers on the Eagles. If you take out because I don't think Deshaun Jackson's going to be a full season here. I think he's going to be hurt. Jalen Reagor, that rookie with the pandemic coming in, is going to hamper him. I don't think he's going to really hit his stride till midseason, if that. J-Jaw, I think the same thing. I think this pandemic hurts him. We'll get more into that later. But I just think, again, you have to rely on the tight ends heavily to be your possessions guys. The Eagles need more speed and more playmaking ability at the outside. They got that with Marquise Goodwin. They got that with John Hightower. They got that with Jalen Reagor, and Deshaun's back. Alshon, to me, when he comes back, if anything, is a proven guy that you can have play. I don't even want to say start the whole entire time. Join the rotation.
Yeah, I mean, it's a difficult one. I like Alshon a lot as a player.
I love Alshon. Thanks for the Super Bowl. Thanks for the Super Bowl because he played.
I've never really loved him on the Eagles though. I've never really loved him here. I love him from go and watch Jay Cutler film from 2013. It's freaking hilarious, man. Alshon just gets to launch the ball. There's plays against Josh Norman I remember, and the coverage is perfect, and Jay Cutler's just he's open. And Wentz isn't that kind of quarterback. To be fair, we spoke about that before with Mike Kay as well. Wentz is not that kind of quarterback. Let's not spend too long discussing Alshon. I'm going to move on.
Right, we need to get into breakout candidate now because I wonder pitchforks anyways for that.
I wonder if I've stole your breakout candidate. So I don't know. I might be wrong. I'm going to go for a slightly weird one. Normally you go the classic breakout is the second year player, isn't it? It's the rookie who didn't have a great year. Every rookie's a breakout. Every second year player's a breakout because it's common to do. But I'm going to go for someone a slight bit older. And I've sort of flip-flopped on my opinion on him, but I'm going to go for Will Parks. And a bit of a strange one because I wasn't sure about Will Parks here because I feel like he's had a pretty good career so far. Based on Conor's reaction, he's going Will Parks as well. It's because we've been discussing this offline a little bit recently, and I wasn't a huge fan of the signing as I like the player, but I don't love the player, and I wanted to keep Malcolm Jenkins openly. But what I wonder with the pandemic and other things, how much is the Eagles defense really going to change? And I'm going to steal Conor's point here. If you look at the current safeties they've got, he is the one that fits the Malcolm Jenkins role the best. I like Jalen Mills quite a lot, actually, and I hope Jalen Mills gets a chance to play, but he can't play the role that Malcolm Jenkins did, not in that way. And Kayvon Wallace is a fourth-round pick who is not going to play much in training camp, is not going to get a preseason, so he's not going to start this year. So almost by massive default, I think Park's skill set actually might fit really well here with the Eagles. So I'm going to go for a strange one and put him as a breakout. Even though he's not that young, he's not sort of a second-year player, but I think he might have a season where he goes from a role player to potentially sort of playing quite a lot of snaps. And we've even discussed previously on the podcast how we could potentially play dime linebacker as well. So you could even see a situation where Mills is playing and Parks are playing. And as you mentioned earlier on, Liam, that idea of get as many defensive backs on the field at once, you could see a bit of a McLeod at deep, Parks playing sort of linebacker on 3rd and 15, and then Mills covering sort of a big body tight end or something, playing Jenkins' role. So, Conor, do you want to add to him? Am I right in guessing he was a breakout player?
Before we get Liam's answer, because you did just take my breakout player, I'm just going to throw it because he took literally everything I said. I said he has all the tools to replace Malcolm Jenkins, plays box, slot extremely well, dime linebacker and sub packages was reminiscent of Jenkins. Pandemic hurts came on Wallace's transition to NFL. Jalen Mills shifted safety. Parks' experience gives him an advantage in the camp competition. And then he's playing for a long-term contract, so he's proving himself. So he literally is going to come out and play his best ball. And to add to that, the Eagles need to replace 1,377 snaps from the safety position with Malcolm Jenkins gone and their third safety position up in the air. That is a huge indication of Parks has never gone past 600 snaps. So you already see the opportunity is going to be there for him in Philadelphia. Jalen Mills is still going to have a ton of snaps as well as safety, no matter what. They're going to play a lot of 3 safeties next year. And not only that, as we alluded to in other episodes, Johnny, if the cornerback 2 position struggles or doesn't look as good, maybe they even consider playing Jalen Mills there a lot. It's a lot of matchup advantages they could do with that. But yes, Will Parks is my breakout candidate. I think I have an article coming out, so I don't really want to go much into it because I did watch a ton of film on Will Parks. But I think there's a lot to like there. I think he is a good breakout candidate, and that's why Johnny and I, of course, agree on that. Both have him. So Liam, Trimble, you're good. You can take as long as you want now. Your breakout candidate since you're the last one with this.
Yeah, Will Parks was there for me as well. Like, I think I can't remember which game I watched. It might have been like week 5 last year, but he was playing like Mike linebacker snaps, and I was like, okay, I'm sold. I'm done. Okay, that guy can do everything. For me, it was a weird one because I, as Conor knows, I get very emotionally attached to players the second I predict a break. So Captain Cravon was obviously the logical one for me. Boston Scott, I was on that hype the second they poached him from the Saints. It was tricky though, trying to find this one, because I didn't really know where to put it. Because I had a feeling you guys might have gone Will Parks. That was like one of my go-to options to begin with. For me, I could have played it Corey Gannon on Carson Wentz. Didn't want to go that way. So I went back to the secondary, and I was like, I don't think Sidney Jones just yet. Is Avonte Maddox ready for an outside role? Probably not. And I was just going round in circles. This is the one thing I got stuck on. Like, it's a lot easier to be negative about players than it is to find like those little silver linings. I'm gonna go with a total wild card. And I mean like a total wild card. I mean, like, if he makes the roster, there's a shot. Elijah Holyfield. Total wild card.
Wow. Breaking news on the Eagles Brawl podcast.
We've seen this before. Eagles and undrafted running backs seem to go well. All right, Corey Clement 2017. We saw Boston Scott recently. I don't know if you guys have seen Elijah Holyfield Panthers film. It's very good. I don't know if you've seen
Georgia. I was a big fan of Elijah Holyfield at Georgia. He went to that combine and ran like his feet were in the mud, and that ruined it.
Oh, yeah. And the thing is, they probably are. But
I think they're stuck there.
Like the Eagles haven't replaced Jordan Howard. That's been the most perplexing thing about this offseason to me. And I'm not saying go out and sign Devonta Freeman or Carlos Hyde or whoever. Like, fair enough. But every year in this Peterson offense, we've seen a committee effort with a bruiser back. And everyone's, it's the end of the committee backfield because Miles Sanders exists. I'm like, well, no, that should be more of an effort to keep the weight off his shoulders. If you get a Ferrari, you don't run it into the ground because you've got a Ferrari. You take care of the Ferrari and you make sure it's at its best when you want to go and flex on everyone, all right? That's what it's there for. So you need someone to come in and do the dirty work. Corey Clement hasn't been that. He couldn't catch punts last year, for crying out loud. I don't think that even with injuries, like recovery with this time, he's going to have it. Michael Warren and, there's the other guys, and there's Michael Warren, the other undrafted free agent. None of them lit the world on fire for me. Elijah Holyfield, as a bruiser back, that if you just ask him to go forward, I think he's a short yardage guy, and I think he could see a significant uptick. But if Boston Scott's going to have a role, it's Darren Sproles. If Elijah Holyfield's going to have a role, it's LeGarrette Blount. And that is, I know it's a dream prediction. It's probably the most unlikely to happen, but
I appreciate the hot takes. I appreciate the predictions because who knows? Then we can refer back to this and say, "Hey, Liam said it first." So
just really
Johnny
quickly,
is fuming. Yeah, I'm about to say Johnny is fuming because you just hated on his favorite player. You just hated on his favorite player.
If Miles Sanders is a Ferrari, Elijah Holyfield must be like the little push bike when you're like 5 that's like yellow and red.
Did
you sort of get pushed around in the garden.
The Subaru Outback of the Eagles backfield.
I mean, you mentioned 2 other UDFAs, but there's a difference between Corey Clement and Boston Scott, and the difference is they can run, which is a problem with Elijah Holyfield, that when you test that poorly, oh my goodness, you better be very, very physical and very powerful. And every time he walks on the field, the opposition might as well just take 5 steps further forward, because you're not going to throw to him. Corey Clement is significantly better, and the problem with Corey Clement is health. To be honest, I think Michael Warren might be better. I do agree with you in some sense, though. I don't think the Eagles are going running back by committee this year, and we can debate in another podcast when there's a whole other debate about whether that's sensible or not. But I think the Eagles are pretty much turning it over to Sanders. I think that's pretty much sort of accepted now. And I'm a little bit surprised they haven't got someone for a power back, because I do think there is a role there. I think there is definitely a role in the Eagles offense. So it's sort of a sneaky breakout. If you get it right, you'll look a genius. But it's not just like a throw a dart on the wall and be like random player or breakout. There is actually logic there. There is definitely a role for an Eagles running back, because I've watched a lot of Sanders as well. I'm sure everyone has, but he doesn't run a lot of power. He doesn't run a lot of counter. They ran him duo a couple of times on the goal line, but they don't use him in that sense. They ended up using Boston Scott more in that role last year, and that's not Boston Scott's speciality. So I think there is a role for a running back. I would guess it would go in order, though. I would guess Corey Clement is priority 1. If he can actually play, because injuries have killed him. But the reason why he's better than the other names mentioned is because Corey Clement can catch, which separates him from Holyfield and from Michael Warren, because I think Clement can give you more. Then I think it's probably a free agent next. I think it probably goes Corey Clement is priority 1. Then second chance will be a free agent. I don't think it's Freeman, but it could be someone else. Then I think you maybe give it to a combination of Warren and Holyfield, which would be a bit worrying, to be honest. And even if they do get it, it might be a highly specialised role. Like, highly specialised. I also wonder if the Eagles could bring in a fullback at some point, or especially in the future going forward, especially the way the league is going, bringing like sort of a halfback who can do a bit of fullback, a bit of running back as well. But that's not looking like it's happening at the moment. So, yeah, I mean, that is a serious long shot. Breakout's the risky one.
I would prefer they go that route, because to me, Miles Sanders is the next LaShawn McCoy. They found the next LaShawn McCoy. Yeah. So I would like for them to give him 25 carries a game. I agree with you, Liam. I do think you do need to keep the wheels fresh, especially in a league where when running backs get to playoffs, most of them are gassed. You want to keep them in tip-top shape, especially a guy that's a speed guy like Sanders, because he could open up a game for you, and as we see all last year with all of the moves he made. To me, I think Boston Scott is a very good short yards back. I think Josh Adams could learn a thing too about him. I think we fall in love with this role, with this type of build of player that we need at the running back committee, because, again, Doug Peterson's usually had that. But I go back to 2016 when he ran it with Ryan. I know Ryan Matthews was not the best example. I know he's not the best example because he was injury prone and stuff. And then they had Darren Sproles, but I would just see they have the luxury of time. They have the luxury of, we can go into the season with Miles Sanders and Boston Scott and Corey Clement, and we can add a running back during the season if that doesn't work, and they could still be effective because we've done it before. Jay Ajayi. I'm not worried about it. That's my least of my worries, is the running back position. I think, if anything, defensive end does. I know. I hear you guys, though. The role I understand you're picking the guy in the role that you think can break out, and that's a legit role. I just don't think. I think we are having a little bit of the turning of the tide, because putting a cap on Miles Sanders on the field is hindering in your offense. I think he's such a dual threat.
Do you not think the only other thing is that it's a really odd way of looking at it, I know. But in a world where running backs aren't getting paid, right? And I know there's this whole, just don't go on Twitter and search, running backs don't matter, because it is the most bizarre side of Twitter I've ever seen. But there is logic that running backs aren't being paid anymore. All right, Sanders came out of college with like -7 college snaps to his name, was like the freshest running back you could have. Is there not an element of like, we kind of do need the committee, because if he goes all in and we ruin him, but he puts up incredible seasons and then we can't afford to pay him, we're back to where we were in 2016 anyway within 3 years. And if we don't get back to the Super Bowl in 3 years, well, then this is going to get tricky.
I would hope they would learn their lesson like they did when they went ahead and took Miles Sanders to the second round and said, hey, if we won't take it in the first, we'll take one in the second finally.
Yeah.
That's what because they did consider Jay. See, you guys say this stuff. I mean, I say this, and it's just my opinion, because that's not how the Eagles are thinking. They considered J.K. Dobbins at pick 53. They wanted Carlos Hyde. they wanted to bring Jordan Howard back. At the Combine, they were raving about they wanted to stick with the committee approach. They didn't expect Jordan Howard to get the money from the Dolphins that he got. They thought they could bring him back on a one-year prove-it deal since he was injured. The Dolphins went ahead and outbid them real quick, and the Eagles were going to pay what the Dolphins offered. So I completely understand why. So it's not like they haven't been actively trying. It's that they've struck out on every single time where they decided to go with Jalen Hurts instead of J.K. Dobbins. So they are actively looking for that role. I think, because they're sticking to Doug Peterson's mantra, and I get it. It works. They should. But to me, I'm like, you have LaShawn McCoy again. Just have fun.
That's why I don't want to bring Shady back. I know we're going to end up, I don't want to overrun on this, but like,
that's why I think they're going to end up bringing it back too. I think it's cost efficient.
There's no point. You've just got then a 1A and a 1B really at the same back.
Well, like, just not even that. You don't, not even anymore, man. Not even. He's lost 2 steps, maybe 3. Because even Andy Reid goes into the playoffs, the postseason, the Super Bowl, and says, you know what? You're better not dressing.
Yeah, he's just sat on the sideline, playing Candy Crush while his team go on and win a Super Bowl. It's a bit...
we got to keep this rolling, though, but I do appreciate that major scorching take. If Elijah Holyfield makes a team and has an impact like a Blair Bunt this year, you know who to at saying, congratulations, Liam, you were correct.
If he's also one of the 7 cuts between now and training camp, please don't kill me.
No, because I appreciate why you made him your pick because of the role. You're fine. You're trying to fill the role. I understand. I like that. So let's go into player that will surprise. Jonny, take it away.
Yeah, player who will surprise. This was a hard one because I sort of wanted to put Will Parks here. I wanted to put Corey Clement, but then I thought I don't actually think Corey Clement is... Unfortunately, I think the injuries might have hurt him hard. So I'm going to go with someone that Eagles Twitter absolutely hates. And Conor can probably guess who I'm going with because of what I've defended him recently. I'm going to go with Nate Gerry, linebacker who Eagles Twitter have decided is trash. I think he's probably... I actually put him as my underrated. I crossed him out and put him as surprise. I would have put him as underrated, but I couldn't really put got it as a surprise. So I sort of rolled it this way around. In reality, this is an underrated player as well. There's one thing that basically the second you say Nate Gerry, and I've already spoken about why I think this. The reason why I think he's going to surprise, by the way, is because I think he's going to play a serious amount of snaps next year. More snaps than ever linebacker. He's going to start in nickel. He's going to start in base. He might even start in dime, depending on what they do. And the second you talk about Nate Gerry, this is what people say, and I get it. They look straight away and they say, yeah, but he misses loads of tackles, right? And I get it. He does. Look at his tackle numbers. They're awful. But I just want to just point this out, and I say this a lot about linebackers and about football. Stats aren't easy, right? One thing about tackles is you don't miss what you don't get to. So I think to an extent, you have to give Nate Gerry some credit, the fact that he's quite often in good positions. And I think actually a bigger problem with him is play action. But I just really quickly looked this up because that's interesting. I looked it up, missed tackles last year. And you look at sort of missed in the running game, and Nate Gerry and sort of total, he's like top 6-7 linebackers in the league for missed tackles. 2 of the guys above him, right? Fred Warner has 3 more missed tackles in the run game and 1 more missed tackle in the pass game. Fred Warner, San Francisco linebacker, might be up there as good as they get. Someone else who's up there with more is Michael Kendricks, who actually had the most in the league last year in the passing game. Obviously, ex-former Eagles linebacker Michael Kendricks. Jordan Hicks is also up there. 4 above Nate Gerry in the run game, 1 above him in the pass game. Some other names around Nate Gerry: Tremaine Edwards, Devin White. There's some good players there. You look at the list of the top linebackers who miss tackles, they're not a bunch of nobodies. It's Devin White, it's Jamie Collins, it's Jordan Hicks, it's Fred Warner, it's Michael Kendricks. Missing tackles doesn't make you a bad linebacker. You've got to be in the place to actually stop it in the first place. So he's a really interesting one. And by the way, if you look at stops, which PFF really quickly, just PFF describes stops as like when you sort of make a play that's not just like a tackle, is it? It's like something that actually sort of stops them from gaining a yard or something. Nate Gerry only played like 500 snaps against the run, and some others had a lot more than him. He ended up with 23 stops, which was 6 more than Devin White, 5 less than Jordan Hicks, 1 less than Fred Warner. And Fred Warner is a star and over double the amount of Michael Kendricks. And his tackling efficiency is nowhere near as bad as some people would think. So I was just sort of defending Nate Gerry. In reality, I'm putting him here as an underrated player, to be honest, because I think he's just far underrated. I think that Nate Gerry is an average to below average linebacker. But I think some people on Eagles Twitter think he is terrible, and Davion Taylor and TJ Edwards, and insert any random free agent linebacker signing, they're better than him instantly. And I think he's probably going to be the Eagles' best linebacker next year. He's probably going to have the best numbers. He's probably going to play the most snaps. that's why I have him as a surprise linebacker. And it is worth remembering he switched from safety to linebacker, which is really hard. And actually, you look at people who switch positions, they don't do it very well. He's sort of one of the only success stories. And he was a 5th-round pick in 2017. So you'd like to think he will continually get better. And I think he sort of has got better. He clearly, last year, people forget as well, was basically the first year he really played. I mean, he barely played previously. His snaps are incredibly low. And he basically had some good games. He did have some bad games, don't get me wrong. But just looking at simply like tackle stats and looking at percentage catches he gives up and stuff doesn't tell the full story, because you don't miss any tackles you don't get to. I think, to be fair to him, he's around the ball quite a lot. And I'm not saying he doesn't need to improve in tackling. Of course I do. He missed way too many tackles last year. But sometimes it's easier at linebacker to look at someone who just gets blocked on the play and think, oh, well, he got blocked, it's not his fault. And Gary has done a reasonable job. First year starting, moving from safety to linebacker, it's a really hard transition, and I think he actually done okay. So I'm gonna say Gary will surprise people, because if you get reasonable production from him, I think that's a surprise, because people think he's going to crash and burn.
That's a good pick. I think that's a good pick, because I think you're right. I do harp on him for the missed tackles a lot. But you're right. Linebackers like him, they're covering so much space nowadays, especially with the running backs becoming receiving threats out of the backfield. They do miss a lot of tackles. I remember I was studying Quan Alexander, and I at first I was like, this guy misses so many tackles. Why does everybody love him? Why does everybody think he's so good? And then I had some actually Brandon Thorne tell me, like, you're missing the point with missed tackles. Believe me, you're missing the point. Dive deeper. And Quan Alexander covers a ton of range. Like, there's a reason why the 49ers paid him that ton of money. I know that they already looked to get out of it, but I agree with you, Johnny, and I'm glad you brought up all those points about how many of the top linebackers, like Jordan Nix last year in Arizona, missed a ton of tackles. And he was awful in coverage last year if you look at his coverage numbers. But they cover so much space in this modern day of football. That's why the Eagles think Nate Gary can be that, because they converted him from safety to linebacker, and they're hoping Davion Taylor and him can be the future there. Two athletes that can cover so much range. I like that
just
pick,
last
Johnny.
thing, really quickly as well. Really quickly, just because we are going too long now, but really quickly. If you look at missed tackles as well as a random stat, right? Any of you want to guess who had the second most missed tackles on the Eagles last year without looking it up? This is based on PFF.
Malcolm Jenkins.
Who would you guess? No.
Wow.
Ronald Darby.
Ronald Darby was fourth. Malcolm Jenkins was fourth as well. It was Rodney McLeod. Yeah, McLeod was up there again. Because what position does McLeod get in? He gets guys when Saquon Barkley's running centre field at him. It's a very difficult position. And just little thing, I'm looking up numbers here because missed tackles, right? Brandon Graham missed 8 tackles last year. Where would you scroll down? Brandon Graham missed 8. Where is he? Vinny Curry missed 1. Who's a better run defender, Brandon Graham or Vinny Curry? Well, it's Brandon Graham by a mile. So why is he missing 8 times the tackles that Vinny Curry is? Because he's getting to the ball carrier a lot. And when you tackle good running backs in NFL and you get there, guess what? You're going to sometimes miss. If you don't get there like Vinny Curry, and I love Vinny Curry as a pass rusher, but he's not a great run defender, you're not going to miss many tackles. It's one of those double-edged swords where the more you get around the ball, the more tackles you're going to miss. So just simply looking at missed tackles, I do not think tells you a correct story. Yes, there are good tacklers. There are good and bad tacklers. It's definitely a real thing. Like, there are, and it is a really important trait as well, do not get me wrong. But yeah, I think tackling's one of those things that can be sort of overrated. A bit like drops as a wide receiver position, where someone drops it and you go, oh, we can't catch. It's like, well, everyone drops the ball. It's just about not being horrendously bad at dropping the ball. And you know what? If you make enough plays, people will live with the drops because you're making big plays. Anyway, let's not spend any longer on Nate Gary. He is my surprise
let's go
pick.
into all right, Liam. Johnny just took away the whole entire segment, but go ahead.
Do you know what? Like, he taught me around a little bit, if I'm honest, because I was going to take another controversial route and just say that Jason Peters would be the most surprising in a bad way at guard. And then, I see Connor's eyebrows raised then. But really quickly, I'll kind of combine them then, because then really quickly on Gary, what a lot of people don't realise as well is that, yes, he made that jump from safety to linebacker. That's big. Year 2, he bulked up by about 25 pounds. He got the Eagles off-season award for like the most improved player in their like behind-the-scenes camp thing. So imagine adding that. Like, I had that much mass over Christmas, and I get heart palpitations walking up the stairs. Imagine then going into a whole new role and then being expected to play that much. Like, yes, he's got weaknesses. Yes, he bites on play action and comes flying down to the line of scrimmage without much rhyme or reason. But then you've got stuff like that massive play against Atlanta. And it was either an interception or a pass breakup in the end zone, like one of the biggest plays of the
interception
game.
in the end zone. I was right there. Yeah.
And it was unbelievable and then it was a play that happened like beforehand, and he like clocked the same thing, moved into a space he ordinarily wouldn't have been in, made a play, and it's like I see the upside there. So I'll combine that then with the controversial. I think Jason Peters is going to lay an egg this year. I think it's a bad move. I think it's understandable people going, yeah, it's easy to move from tackle to guard, and I don't ever want to equate it to Dillard moving left to right. But there is some element of this is a man that has played one position on the left for pretty much 10 years solid now. Having to move to guard is one thing. Having to do it where every body movement is reversed is a different beast entirely. Like, moving to guard typically helps people who have like a little bit of a lack of mobility and a lot of strength. I think if false starts were a problem before, they're going to be a problem now. I think, if I'm honest, this move was made to get him in the building as an insurance policy behind Dillard, knowing there's no off-season, right? Without giving it as a direct correlation to, hey, Andre, here's Peters down your back. Peters is probably going to lay an egg in camp. It would not surprise me if Matt Pryor is your starting right guard by week 1. And then if Andre Dillard struggles, you've got Jason Peters to come in at tackle. I don't think that it is ever a wise decision. Like, yes, the deal is quite attractive, but is the play going to be realistically? Could they have done better for the money? I think they didn't need to make the move. Like, if they didn't think Matt Pryor was the guy, he's at the OL Masterminds class with Lane Johnson. Like, that's what you want to see. Like, he's building that chemistry. He's sat between Kelsey and Johnson. You don't need to go and bring in that one just yet. So and I think, that's my move.
They've been used to Brandon Brooks being injured the last couple of years now too. So it's not like it's a huge thing for them to go ahead and replace right guard. But I took the over on Jason Peters playing left tackle this year. He's gonna play a lot of left tackle this year, I believe. I agree with you. I don't think the guard thing. I think the guard thing was to like Jonny and I discussed on a previous episode, to make Andre Dillard comfortable. You already saw him be uncomfortable already. You already see his confidence shot. You don't want to say, hey, we brought him back to compete with your left tackle. We brought him back because we're scared at right guard right now. But, I mean, last couple of years, Brandon Brooks has been out, and we had to replace him. So it's not like it's a huge thing either. I think Jason Peters will play more than Andre Dillard as a left tackle this year. So I agree with part of what you're saying in that essence. Let me go into mine real quick since we gotta hurry up and start wrapping stuff up. Mine is Derek Barnett for player that will surprise. I'll tell you why.
No.
I'll tell you why. No, I'll tell you why. Because I do agree with what you were saying earlier. Because he will never be a top 15 caliber player of pick. That's not going to happen. But he's in the best position for a double-digit sack season than he ever has in his career. Lack of Eagles' interest in bringing edge depth plays well into Barnett's getting even a higher snap count than last year's 752. Javon Hargrave's presence will force offensive tackles to chip block him, which will give Barnett better opportunities to win with outside and inside leverage on pass rushes where he thrives, because we all know that Derek Barnett cannot bull rush and he will never be able to. So, again, they might bring back Vinny Curry. There's still a lot of time. There's Everson Griffin still out there. Javidi Clowney still out there. But we all know how much Jim Schwartz loves Derek Barnett. We all know what they think about him. They're going to give him every opportunity. If he doesn't play 752 snaps, it's going to be a little bit less than that after that. So he's still going to be paying a lot on the football field. But with Willie Jackson also being back and healthy, he's finally playing next to somebody that isn't a practice squad caliber player, is a legitimate starter, that is fully healthy. Javon Hargrave is a huge presence this year for the Eagles. It's just going to boost Derek Barnett's play. And I think once people see Derek Barnett's sack numbers and see the box score, they're going to think, wow, he's finally made it. But no, it will be because he's benefiting from Javon Hargrave being there.
Yeah, I think that's a really good one, because you're right. I mean, at the moment, if they go into the season with what they've got now, Barnett's going to get a lot of snaps. Like, we spoke about Barnett at length. We think he's an average player, which I think he's fine. He shouldn't have been an early first-round pick. It's a shame. But they haven't got much else there. Like, he's going to get a serious amount of snaps next year. And if you get a serious amount of snaps on a team that has Fletcher Cox, Javon Hargrave, and Brandon Graham opposite you, you're going to get a serious amount of one-on-one matchups. You'll probably get 3 or 4 sacks a year just by the quarterback falling into you as they're getting knocked from the other side. Like, so his numbers will probably be quite good next year if it carries on.
Right, because if you think about it, he's the Eagles' 5th best defensive lineman is Derek Barnett, probably, because you probably would say Cox, Graham, Hargrave, Jackson. So, opportunity.
And I also also don't think Josh Sweat's ready to start, and I broke him down quite in depth.
No.
I like Josh Sweat as a role player. I like him as a backup. I don't think he's a starter currently.
And then you and I have also said he's a better pass rusher than Derek Barnett anyway.
So I do think
he will get the third down opportunities, but Derek Barnett's numbers will be inflated by having the presence of Javon Hargrave there, and then also a healthy Malik Jackson will come in that third defensive tackle role. So I think Derek Barnett's numbers will be inflated by that, and people will think, wow, Derek Barnett's finally made it. But I'm telling you right now, his numbers will be inflated because of the presence of everybody else. That's why I think he will surprise.
Yeah, it's a good pick there. Right,
I'm going to wrap it up. Disappoint. Go ahead, Johnny. Disappoint.
Yeah, I'm gonna cheat here because I'm gonna pick 2 players, even though I'm only allowed to pick 1. Because I wanted to pick one of them earlier, and you sort of said him as well. You already mentioned him, Conor. So I'm going to say what you said, but then make it a bit generic. So my actual answer was Alshon Jeffrey, who's going to disappoint. But I'm going to expand that and say the ex-wide receiver is going to disappoint. So I think whether that's Alshon or JJ Arcega-Whiteside, I think that position is going to disappoint. I think anyone who thinks that position is going to be a high-volume role for the Eagles, whether that's JJ Arcega-Whiteside playing next year at the start, or if Alshon, because at the moment, I must admit, and I'm very surprised, I know people like Jimmy Kempski have said for a while it's not going to happen, it looks like Alshon's going to be on the team. Like, I don't think he's not going to start, is he? He might not play for a while, but he looks like he's going to play when he's healthy. And if JJ's not doing very well, he'll probably come in and replace him halfway through the season as a starter. But I'm going to I don't need to talk about JJ Arcega-Whiteside. I spoke about him too much on this podcast already. People know my thoughts about him. I don't think he's very good. It's a shame. So I don't think he'll do very well if he starts there. So the reason why Alshon, though, is I'm going to refer to a guy we tried to get on the podcast a while ago, football injury doctor who writes for Fantasy Points. And he's done some, basically, or not him, but he's provided studies on people who study from list rank injuries. The next season, they suffer about 21% performance levels. Now, Alshon wasn't moving very well before the injury. You take an Alshon from last year where he had a pretty disastrous year. I mean, people forget he played over half the season, Alshon, last year. Like, you wouldn't believe it. He played like over 10 games. Like, he played a pretty decent amount of snaps and just wasn't very good. His yards per reception was awful compared to where he's been his whole career. So you take that Alshon, another year older, minus 21% coming off an injury. Like, that doesn't sound like a very good Alshon to me. And I've spoken about how much I like him before. So I would love him to be good. I would love Alshon Jeffrey to come back and be the X receiver that this team needs, because don't get me wrong, this team should have signed someone else because they're going to struggle. I mean, they couldn't have predicted a pandemic, but Rager's not going to have enough time to play. Deshaun Jackson's going to have to carry these receiving group, which is less than ideal. I would have signed someone else there, but they didn't. So yeah, my actual pick is Alshon, but I'm sort of throwing in a bonus one there with the X wide receiver position will disappoint. Whether that's Alshon at the end of the season or JJ Arcega-Whiteside at the start of the season, neither of them are going to give you the production that you want from your X receiver.
All right,
I'll finish
Liam,
my points there.
I hate to go out of order, but let me just go with this because Johnny kind of pretty much took my answer. I put JJ Arcega-Whiteside with disappointing because I think a lot of people are expecting him to have the second-year surge, to be a better player since he'll be fully healthy, and I'm using air quotes here with saying fully healthy because if he wasn't healthy enough to play, he should have been on the field. That's how bad he was. They could have afforded to keep him off the field if he was actually really hurt. He was that bad. Pandemic hurts the important reps in camp. He's not going to have any preseason reps either, so that also hurts. I do like that he is working out with Carson Wentz in Houston this offseason with Jalen Reagor and all that. That's great, but I just don't think he's that talented overall. His confidence is already shaken, and the Eagles added way too many faces to the wide receiver room in hopes of reshaping it. Howard Roseman gave himself needed insurance if JJ Arcega-Whiteside doesn't pan out. Again, I agree with Johnny. I think this year we're going to see a lot more Zach Ertz in the X position. We're going to see a lot more Dallas Goedert in the X position. With the 12 personnel, I think you could use Goodwin and Jackson on the outside or Jackson and Reagor on the outside and have Zach Ertz and Dallas Goedert still be there and be just fine. I don't think they need an X-caliber wide receiver that much this season. But I do think JJ Arcega-Whiteside will get the most snaps there just because of that's who they have. So they can play that position. And as we mentioned in our episode with Mike K that Johnny brought up earlier, I don't think JJ Arcega-Whiteside fits one style at all, just like Alshon hasn't. The jump ball, throw it up there, and hope your wide receiver wins opportunity isn't Wentz's forte. He wants to fit it into windows from guys who create separation, which is why he heavily favors Ertz and his separation ability. His connection from game one with Deshaun was electric, and when Torrey Smith and Nelson Aguilar were creating space in 2017, Wentz was heavily targeting them. JJ will never provide Wentz that ability. He will never get separation. Nick Foles was the jump ball enthusiast, not Carson Wentz. It's not going to change. That's why I'm very down on JJ Arcega-Whiteside. I think at best, and I said it in previous episodes, he will become the Riley Cooper type role on the offense and had that one outliner season because of injuries or something like that.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with both of you. I guess that leaves me now, doesn't it?
Yes, it does, Liam. All right. To end the episode, Liam, who do you think will disappoint on the Eagles this year?
See, you thought the other one was bad. This is gonna. I told you, you thought me on because you wanted me to come back in, so I made sure I brought the heat. There were two. Both of them are going to get me scolded, so I had to kind of pick which one. The first one was Jalen Reagor, only because, and I love Jalen Reagor. Like, I had him as my fourth ranked wide receiver. Anyone in the NFL draft this year. He was the fourth off the board, so I was very happy with that. I was like, beautiful, that's fine. The only reason I would say it'd be a disappointment, though, is because the expectations are so high in a season where, as you mentioned earlier, there's no OTAs, there's no training camp, there's no preseason as we know it. So I think that expecting to come in and get 800 yards is unrealistic. And I think we should be totally okay with if he has 300 yards and a few touchdowns and a few great deep passes. That's fine. Let's wait and see what he does year two. Like, let's just wild card this season off, have it as what it is. And if he takes over that spot from Deshaun Jackson, brilliant. But let's not expect it right away. Let's have it as an optional bonus for what should be a year of development and getting to grips with the team. Like, the first 4 weeks are going to be a preseason anyway. That's fine. My biggest disappointment is Darius Slay. And as someone, I know Connor's face right away.
Oh my God.
I was not high on that signing at all. All right. I was a Byron Jones guy because what do you need in an Eagles defense where corners play off the ball, where everything's coming at you underneath? Right, the one thing you need is tackling, right? It's why I hated Ronald Darby. I said last offseason, the day he was signed, the most disliked video on my YouTube channel is me sat on this bed ranting that Ronald Darby is the worst offseason move. Everyone scolded me for it, and then this year happened, right? Darius Slay's tackling effort last year was abysmal. It was disgraceful. I hate it. It was shocking. There was no
Liam, please take the hamstring into consideration, though, my man.
No, dude. The only thing
consideration. I think
16 games.
No, go. His hamstring was hurt the whole entire season. Yes,
from
week 3 for the rest of the season. He said that it hampered this one. All right, so listen.
So what about his speed and coverage then? Can he still run with everyone fine? And we'll happily talk about his pass breakups on Twitter, but we'll never mention his tackles, though. I'm just saying, like, and at the end of the day, okay, I love Darius Slay, what he does in the air. And if the Eagles remold this defense and they allow him to press and allow him to shadow a wide receiver and take away one side of the field, which is what we're all dreaming of, I don't think he'll be asked to tackle very much. He'll be allowed to play on a wide receiver and just play press and cover and take him out there, and that's fine, in which case he won't disappoint. I think he'll disappoint because his skill set is going to be reliant on Jim Schwartz making adjustments, which Jim Schwartz doesn't do until there's an Inquirer article about him that scolds him for everything wrong he's ever done. Then, magically the next game, now the corners are playing press and now we're seeing more blitzes. Like, I don't think Jim Schwartz is going to magically make changes to this defense in a year where we know there isn't training camp as we know it. There isn't going to be OTAs. There's no preseason. It wouldn't surprise me if you're still seeing corners in off coverage, 10 yards off the ball, Slay stand there and just aimlessly flailing at players. Like, if that happens, the fan base will riot. And I have way too many nightmares. Maybe it's Ronald Darby PTSD. I don't know. But I think if we're looking for a player where the expectation is this high and the floor can be that low, I think the biggest cliff to fall off would be Darius Slay, with the weight of expectation of, oh my God, the Eagles finally got a shutdown corner. This is our saving grace. This is the man to end the misery. This is the messiah of the secondary. I think that is a lofty expectation for someone whose primary skill set in this scheme, in where it's a zonal scheme and he is a man corner, I think that's a big cliff to fall off.
What a way to end the episode.
I just realized we shouldn't have ended on disappointment, should we? We should have had to say, we should have had this, the breakout. But anyway, Conor, anything to add? I've got two things I want to say, then we'll finish.
I think Liam raises fair points, at least, if you want to argue it. But now I know how you felt when I wrote that article for Philly Sports Network when I said Darius Slay will bounce back in 2020.
The thing is, I love the article. You were the one that taught me into Slay, and I had to hold off on the film room for so long because every time I watched it, I couldn't. like we know what he does well, which is the interceptions and the pass breakups and the speed
Oh,
downfield.
he's
And
one of the best
you
zone
know,
corners in the
he's
NFL.
incredible.
Period. So
He's in,
here's my thing: the Jim Schwartz does a mix of press and zone. He prefers to do a mix of press and zone. They played more zone last year because obviously the injuries at corner. They played 58% of their snaps in zone. Darius Slay is way better in zone than he is in press, and he is still a great press corner too, as well. I think Matt Patricia just specifically put him in that specific role, and that's why he floundered a little bit last year because his hamstring was also bummed, and playing press corner with a bum hamstring, it's just not going to happen. I agree with you in the sense of the tackling perspective, but again, like this is, I have Asante Samuel on my wall. I love that guy. Wasn't the best tackler. So
true. Yeah.
I don't live or die by my corners being great at tackling, and I know that's where you and I used to disagree with Ronald Darby a lot. You ended up being right in that though because he was dreadful last year. But to me, he's coming back into the defense he was drafted into. He knows what Jim Schwartz already expects. He's fully healthy now. I just don't see how this doesn't work out. But we all know how the Eagles are with corners. So you raise great points. All great points, though. So it's not something I could say like, oh, Liam, you're wrong. Like, there's no way that's going to happen.
No.
So,
I don't ever want to be out here saying, oh, I hate Darius Slay. I hate the move. It's awful and he's going to suck. Like, I think he'll do really well.
You made legit points. I think you raised a good argument. I think people are going to kill you for it, though, after they hear this episode. But I think you made good points.
I also think you might deserve it, but that's another question. No, you're right.
Yeah.
You raised two good points, which are basically scheme fit and tackling. One of them I can't really argue against tackling. He sucked last year. All I would say to that is the Lions were a mess last year. They were bad. Everything went wrong. The quarterback was injured. And do I want every player getting 100%?
Secondary.
They literally the team gave up. And if you want to be nice, I do think if he's playing for a team that are actually good and competing in a culture where I don't think he'll get away with it as much here with Schwartz. But to be honest, Matt Patricia's pretty tough as well. So it's a bit of a weird one. But I'm hopeful.
I don't think Jim Schwartz is going to do the stuff that Matt Patricia was doing, though. It's like telling him that. And stop sucking on people's jock straps or stuff like that.
Yeah, and I think schematically, I think they will make adjustments. I think, although you're right, Jim Schwartz has never done it here. I think that's a perfectly fair point, and I think you are right. He's never changed it. I don't think he's ever been given a hand that's very good. I don't think he's ever had a very good cornerback. So both your points are right in the aspect of they are potential weaknesses. I don't think either of them, even if you are right though, I think he is that good that he will still be an upgrade and still be a decent corner. You're right, he might not be the corner that we all want. He might just be an above average starting corner. But I'm more bullish on him because I think the tackling, I'm to be honest, the tackling I'm not really sure about. I have no real sense. I just don't think you'll get away with that effort on a team that's winning. Like, can you imagine him going into a playoff game and just not tackling the guy? Like, I'm just not sure it happens. The Lions have been crap for so long, and he's just got away with being their best player by a distance on defense a lot of the time. So I think he'll be pushed harder here to make more or do a little bit more, give a little bit more effort. And I think schematically, I think he will survive. I think Schwartz will change it. I expect him to travel with number one receivers. I expect him to match up. He better, because they're not very good at number two corner. So I would imagine Schwartz will use him that way. And I think with a better pass rush as well, he will be hidden a little bit more than in Detroit. He was fully magnified every single error because they couldn't rush the quarterback to save their life. So I think he will have a better year. On that note, Conor, before we debate for too long, shall we end it soon? Because this is behind the scenes of Eagles Brawl. Every episode is half hour to 45.
Yeah.
Then we get talking about Darius Slay. We start talking about Will Parks and Nate Gary, and I go off on TJ Edwards for a bit, and suddenly you're like an hour and 15 minutes in.
It's how it goes, but I think people will appreciate the episode at least because this was a great debate. It was a great roundtable discussion. Liam brought the heat with his hot takes. I had one for myself. I had some fun with some of my answers. Jonny gave some great answers as well. Liam,
thank you.
We can find you on Twitter at Liam Jenkins PSN. PhillySportsNetwork.com is the website. We'll plug their details into the episode's information so you can find them and their great articles if you haven't already, which I highly doubt it. They're a very famous website. Everybody knows them now. Liam, you were also featured on the Eagles, weren't you? Did they write an Eagles article about you? Yes.
Yeah.
Overseas Eagles fan, right?
Yeah, 2018. Yeah, it was the Eagles international game they played in London. So it was 2018, and they caught up and just kind of documented the rise of the site. And that did So real solid. It kind of helped draw some new eyes, and I think put a new level of probably respect that wasn't there for me personally. Like the brand was always starting to get recognition, but it's like expecting a 19-year-old kid at the time when I made it to go into America and just going, I'm going to talk about the Eagles. Like no one's going to care. So to finally get that level of respect, to go, all right, well now he's starting to get a bit of legitimacy. It helped us a lot over the last year. So yeah, mate, it's been cool. But just thanks for having me on. It's been a pleasure.
And then just to end it, you guys recently had Brian Dawkins on the show for Flipping the Birds. Raised a ton of money for his cause. Congratulations on that. Definitely check out that episode. It was Flipping the Birds, correct? I got that right? Flipping the Birds podcast.
Yeah, Flipping the Birds. I'm proud of that name.
It was a great episode with Brian Dawkins. They did a great interview there, so check that out if you had the chance to. Liam, great having you on. We'll have to have you on again, my friend.
I'd love to be on. Thanks for having me, guys. And enjoy the rest of your quarantine, however you may be spending it.
You too as well, my friend. And remember to leave those 5-star ratings and reviews.